the keyboard to the boardroom, this is the Business of Esports. From the keyboard to the boardroom, this is the Business of Esports Podcast. I am Paul Dawalibi. I'm joined today by my friend and co-host, the Honorable Judge Jimmy Baratta. For those of you who are new here, welcome to the official podcast of esports. What we do is we cover the most pressing gaming and esports topics and news of the week, but we look at all of it through a business and C-suite lens. We dissect, we analyze the business implications of everything happening in this industry. For our regular listeners, thank you guys for tuning in every week. Thank you for all the love, the 5-star ratings and reviews. If you haven't already, go leave a review on the podcast. Let us know how much you love it. Share it with a friend or a colleague, maybe. That's how we get more people to discover the podcast. And if you haven't, also make sure to subscribe, follow the podcast on any platform you listen to this on, whether it's Apple or Spotify or Google Play. Jimmy, how you doing this week?
I'm in deep trouble, Paul. I messed up. I messed up big time.
Oh, no.
I got back into Fortnite for the no build mode, and I broke down. I bought the Balenciaga skin and weapon pack. I'm back in up to my neck. Honestly, it's just like the old days. It's there's no stopping it.
First of all, those skins aren't even that nice. I did look at them. Well, I don't know if you like them, but as like Fortnite skins go, they're not that nice.
But I have the real life hoodie, so naturally my character has to wear it also. Next thing, I got to get the backpack now to match my guy. That's how they get you.
Yeah, but I looked at all of them, and I didn't see anything A, I would have bought in real life, or B, that I really wanted to buy in Fortnite.
Honestly,
it wasn't a nice skin. It just wasn't that cool. I don't know.
I think we're different. You're not a big Fortnite fan in general, but if you also saw the Matrix activation they did, some of the Matrix weapon wraps are really, really cool. Like I said, this is really just the start of a lot of purchases that are coming my way.
I have bought some Fortnite skins. I will say the Balenciaga ones felt uninspired to me. And of the streamers I watch, which is quite a few during the day, I always have some kind of streamer open. I rarely see anyone using the skin. I just feel like my guess is it didn't sell all that well, or at least not as well as maybe some other Fortnite skins. I don't know if it was top 5 or top 10 or something. I would guess not even the top 10. Just anecdotal evidence based on all the streamers I watch and the skins they use now. Maybe they all bought it and they just don't use it. I don't know. But it felt a little uninspired to me. I'm sad to hear that you're back into Fortnite though, although I agree the no build is a draw. Question is, was this a business expense? Am I paying for the Balenciaga skin?
This is a personal expense, but thank you for raining on my parade. Maybe our guest today will like that I got that skin. Maybe he has it too. I'm not sure, but we'll find out.
It's a great segue. We have an absolutely unbelievably amazing guest today. They just seem to get better and better and better on this podcast. Our guest today is Steve Arhancet, who is the co-CEO and owner of Team Liquid. I mean, I'm sure a name that literally every one of our viewers knows. Steve, welcome to the Business of Esports Podcast.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, it's great to be here.
Steve, it's so unfortunate. So many of our listeners actually listen to this podcast only and don't watch it, but you've got such an amazing background of stuff behind you.
I do.
And those posters of, I guess, Team Liquid winning tournaments. That's just very cool.
Yeah, it's a nice little setup. I need to get my lights on the third shelf there where I have my Muta from StarCraft, and I got some more shelves on this side that need filling. But yeah, it's nice. It's all gamers. We love collectibles. We love to, I've got a whole closet full of badges for when we were IRL and would go to, BlizzCon and PAX and all that kind of stuff.
That's fun.
Yeah, I need to get those framed.
Steve, maybe for our viewers or listeners who don't know about you, or the one who maybe hasn't heard of Team Liquid, would love for you to give us a bit of the Steve story, some of your background, how you got into gaming, why you got into gaming, and a little bit about Team Liquid and what you guys are doing now.
Yeah, absolutely. So a little bit about me. So I, as a young kid, grew up in Leesburg, Virginia. If anybody is familiar with the area, it's right outside of Washington, D.C. And when I was young, my dad had a computer in the house, so I was always on it, way too much. External modem days, AOL, connecting to the internet sort of thing. And I spent a lot of time gaming, and I was also a console, like NBA Jam and Sonic and stuff. And I remember my parents took me to Blockbuster when it was still Blockbuster and not bankrupt. And we would do these competitions and get high scores. And if you got the high enough score, then you got access to an MLG event that you would go to and compete at IRL. And I competed in a few of those and made it to regionals and stuff. And anyway, so fast forward a bit, I'd been a gamer, playing StarCraft and a ton of Dota and Warcraft and Civ, and then Han for a little bit. And then, League of Legends kind of appeared from the ether out of Dota. And damn, I fell in love. I fell in love with League of Legends. And, this was, and meanwhile, I'd graduated college and I had started my own financial services company. I had a whole practice in the Washington, D.C. metro area and staff and stuff. And, I'd been doing pretty well for myself. And, but then on, weekends, I was like traveling to the Intel Extreme Masters in China and Europe and, qualifying for Worlds before there was even LCS and League of Legends. And, I ran into a sponsor, which Alienware, and her name was Marcy, and she was at the Intel Extreme Masters event. And she came up to me afterwards and she said, "Hey, we'd love to sponsor your team." And I was like, "Oh, you mean like put your logo on our jersey?" She's like, "Yeah, like that." And so I said, "For how much?" And she's like, "Well, how does $250,000 sound?" I said, "That sounds great." Thus a business was formed, and ended up calling LegalZoom to set up an LLC, because at the same time I kept thinking it was just on the side a little bit, and was doing both things at once. And then when the naming rights stuff came through for Curse Inc., who they're kind of owned a bunch of websites and stuff, and the team became Curse, and I was like, all right, it's time to do this. And I asked all my friends and family, like, hey, should I take this huge financial planning practice and just stop doing it and move to a house in California and live with 14 guys and run a business that is probably going to lose money? And everybody was like, no, hell no, or F no, except for one of my friends. And she was like, Steve, go follow your heart. So I picked up everything and moved out to California, and then started running the business. And fast forward a bit, grew in sponsorships and players and games. And then in 2014 or 13, ran into Victor, who had founded Team Liquid. And at the same time, Curse Inc. was actually selling one of their products to Riot Games, Curse Voice, if you remember. And they had to get rid of sponsoring the team because they couldn't do that. It was a conflict of interest. So, I purchased the team fully from Hubert, who was running Curse, and I needed a new name. So I was either going to start my own brand or merge with an existing esports organization, and decided to make it work with Victor. And I remember I called him up and I was like, "Hey, Victor, I'm Steve. Nice to meet you. I was thinking, what about like merging our companies, splitting the equity down the middle, becoming co-CEOs?" Like, who the fuck are you? So that was great. And then fast forward a little bit more, and we sold a portion of the company to Peter Guber and Ted Leonsis. And then did a little investment there, and then have continued to do some small rounds since, and they've been amazing partners. And now Team Liquid is the most watched esports team in the world for 7 years in a row. And we've won more prize money than any other esports team in the world. And we've won more championships than any other esports team in the world. And got a pretty big fan base, and well respected, I think, within the community.
I mean, it's such a great story, Steve. Let me start with a question I think I often ask heads of esports teams, who come on the show. And that is, where do you put Team Liquid on sort of the spectrum of esports teams? And the way I define it is, you've got, ultra competitive teams who are focused on winning on one end, and you have maybe more content media, hoodie focused teams on the other end, and both legitimately interesting businesses in their own right. But where on that spectrum have you always sort of seen Team Liquid, or maybe not on that spectrum? Like, do you define Team Liquid differently?
Yeah. I would say we definitely gravitate more towards the focus on pursuing excellence, competition, fielding players as athletes and competing under our roster and winning championships. So that has been the kind of the main identity of Team Liquid. That being said, the general gaming audience is far greater than the esports audience. I think, traffic on Twitch, for example, maybe 5%, if I had to guess, of the total traffic on Twitch is esports related. So you just have a much larger opportunity to grow your fan base in a more substantial way by getting into general gaming rather than just esports focus. So that's something that will be a focus for us going into Q3 and Q4 and next year. That being said, I think some of those other teams like FaZe or 100 Thieves, their brand and their identity, I think, is very different than the Team Liquid one. I would describe FaZe as like the FaZe bro, the cars and the clicks and the money and the bets and the that kind of superficial validation, the way you look and how disruptive something might feel, and that broiness of camaraderie. We're very different than that. We're kind of more about just integrity and humility and being a bit peculiar, being focused on like education and mastery and authenticity and pursuing excellence and honing your craft and leveling up, your craft skill, so to speak, and whatever you want to do. A little bit more weird and dorky, and cerebral. So with that, there's probably a smaller audience of gamers that fit that profile versus the FaZe bro. So, I think for us, part of that will be creating new content and finding collaborations that make sense for us. And you'll probably see more of that. So I'd say we're on that one side that you described, moving and gravitating a little bit more towards the other, but not headed in the same direction that you might understand it today.
Sorry, go ahead, Jimmy.
Well, I just wanted to continue down this line because I kind of have a two-part question here, at least as I see it. As you're describing not only what's made you guys great and what's your core identity, but also in terms of where you're taking the business kind of and going more towards content creation. I mean, you guys are so successful across so many titles, mobile games, 17 different titles, I think, last I checked, and correct me if I'm wrong here.
Yeah, I think it's 19 now or something.
Exactly. You also lost count. And that's kind of the point of my question is, for starters, what is in that DNA or in that pursuit of excellence and honing your craft kind of mentality that's allowed you to replicate the same success across so many different titles, as well as how do you replicate that, or rather, how do you expand that into content creation, which arguably radically different than competing at the highest level and only caring about being the best at something because there's an entertainment factor there, which is in gaming at least, not just about how good you are, but also personalities, engaging with audiences live on stream and things of that nature.
Yeah. I think it starts with, what is Team Liquid? I think from a business perspective, we're much more liquid enterprises than just a team. And as an enterprise, we have a number of different business verticals. One of those is content creation. And the way that we approach content creation, I think we've been pretty best in class in terms of us versus other teams. We've done the documentaries. We have done commercials for our partner Honda. If you've watched like the LCS, you probably have seen them. They're like car commercials, and you know how car commercials are. They're like, wow, those are car commercials. Like, a lot of money has been put behind this, and the idiosyncrasies that you have to pay attention to in order for it to go well. And we've filmed and produced and edited those, and we've done great animation work. I'm not sure if you saw like our Valorant piece when we announced our roster. We actually got a ping from Riot saying, okay, you guys' stuff is looking like too like close to like the quality of our stuff. You have to, if you're going to use our IP, So I think what we do is we kind of take that pursuing excellence and more the curiosity and pushing ourselves and, demonstrating excellence within those different verticals and genres and craft and technical expertise areas within the company. And we apply it to like production and editing and story writing. And we have kind of a really good brand marketing and content part of the company. And so, yeah, I think with the right focus, you'll see more of that integrated into the content that's published by Team Liquid. And it could be in like a Hard Knocks kind of documentary around one of our team members. It could also be in a commercial that you watch when watching a CSGO match that we filmed for a partner. So it's hopefully going to be woven into every aspect of our business, not just how we play and win.
Can you also expand that into the creators and the talent that you sign and what you look for in them, and how that also is applied and manifested in who you choose to represent your banners?
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting. It's like on the athletic side, you hopefully are able to identify athletes that produce wins. That is the most important, is winning, right? But you hope you get lucky every now and again. And you're like, hey, this signing that we just did makes a lot of sense. They're aligned with our values and our brand and our identity. And I'd say, for example, Bjergsen is a great example of that. Bjergsen was on TSM and for folks that don't know, Bjergsen's like one of the biggest names in all of League of Legends, maybe behind Faker and maybe one or two others, right? Like he's up there in the world. And he had been on TSM for like 7 or 8 years or something like that. And when he signed with Team Liquid and he started to get to know the company, and I was having a conversation with him, he's like, I feel more at home at Team Liquid than I ever did at TSM. And I think fans kind of get that too, just because of how he carries himself with humility and integrity. And he is very selective with his words. He's, an architect with how he plans his practice. And you get that from him. And those vibes kind of carry on to Team Liquid. And I think folks will start to understand that over time as he's with the organization. We've got him under a 3-year contract. On the content creator side, this has been something that we've really focused on. So just in the last like 2, maybe 3 months, we've signed, I believe, at least maybe 14, both athletically and content creator women to the organization, which has been fantastic. And that really doubles down on our value of inclusivity and diversity and just doing more. So that's been really good. And part of it too is like their content. What type of content is it? Is it more looking for clicks, or is it educational, or is it entertainment, or, it's the style needs to match Team Liquid. And for us, more of that educational, that mastery component to what they're doing, like helping level up people that watch their content, would be more aligned with the Team Liquid brand and content creators that we'd want to partner with.
Steve, does that ethos extend to the kinds of brands and sponsors and companies that, give you guys money to put their logo or, and the example I always think of is, and correct me if I'm wrong, but, FaZe has their content house, right? And again, I call this one extreme. And then you guys sort of, I always felt were at the opposite end because, you had the Alienware like training facility. It felt more like going to the gym rather than, going to party. And I'm curious, like, how much does this ethos extend to the sponsors and the brands that you work with?
It's kind of interesting, like, very much so is the short answer. But like, we were in conversation with a partner. I'm just trying to think if I'm allowed to say who, but with a partner that we have. And we were talking about renewals. And during those renewal conversations, we kind of said, look, we want to establish a partnership for a significant amount of time, because we don't want to advertise a different brand to our audience. We feel like that chase for dollars and, it's inauthentic,
Yep.
like it doesn't, fans see through that stuff. And so it was important for us. And so I said, you know what, why don't we do this? Why don't we have your brand team and our brand team get together and chat and talk about the alignment of these values and that was the first part of figuring out whether we were going to renew our partnership or not. And I think that approach is not something that most teams probably think about. They're probably thinking about what deliverables and what content and what are the views going to be and what's the engagement and how many products and widgets are we going to sell and advertise and all that stuff. And we just don't think that way. Our partnership strategy is much more about mark association. Like you walk into a room and you're next to Alienware, and Alienware is next to Team Liquid. That says something. Whether we are in a video or a Netflix series, or it's the Alienware training facility, or it's a YouTube video, or it's a TikTok, or whatever it might be, we're together. And that endorsement of marks, so to speak, is the brand value. And we care much more about that and what it means than widgets. And of course, we do all the reporting and we're very polished on that side of the business. I don't mean to understate it. It's expensive. I think we spend like $500,000 just in reporting software per year. But the vibe of the relationship is very much a partnership. And that's the way we approach it. And I think that's why we actually have 100% renewal rate with every one of our partners for the last 8 years.
Wow.
So I think that just, it's, I guess, from the top, that's how we manage our partnerships. We treat them like we would friends, good friends. It's worked out.
I mean, Steve, how much of your, like, I feel a lot of the owners, the CEOs of gaming companies that we bring on the show, a lot of times they're very young and, this gaming business is maybe the first company they've started or the first company that they've really, serious company that they've worked for. And so you see a lot of like gamers building gaming companies. You were obviously a gamer, but started in a very different career, right? Radically different with financial planning. How much of that have you brought to the esports world, to your business, or are they such different universes that I'm just curious how much of that has sort of seeped into Team Liquid.
Yeah, I would say a good portion. I'd say from a young age, my entrepreneurial spirit, started selling burned CDs with MP3s that I illegally downloaded on the internet to my friends in class and put their favorite music on one disc.
I did that too.
Yeah, or doing lemonade stands and all kinds of stuff. I just love that. But that probably mixed with when I was doing a lot of the financial planning work, you learn about management and people, and yes, HR law and payroll and all these kind of aspects of business. When you're running a business, it all leads up to you. So I was able to execute it on a much smaller scale with a much smaller team, but I think I learned, people are everything and talent is everything. And the relationships you have with your staff and the trust that you earn, that you can easily lose, is imperative to alignment and doing more with more people. So I think that helped with building a company. And building Team Liquid and identifying and finding relationships with other people that have like-minded values. I think we're pretty good about, during our recruitment process and interview process, identifying folks that fit. And we call it doing things the TL way. And so, with that, it definitely helped for sure. And then my love for gaming and the fact that I game every day almost, and, I follow everything religiously and my heart is so much in this. And the fact that I hope that, my actions or the team's actions have a positive effect on the maturity and the design of the esports ecosystem for teams and players. I think those things just kind of married well for like the right recipe for success for Team Liquid, I think.
What can you share, looking at it from the reverse perspective, or I guess taking it the other direction, with regard to, not just your sponsors, not just the games you participate in or your talent, but also your advisors, right? Magic Johnson, Tony Robbins, Axiomatic, your investors, and the people that you look to for guidance. What can you share about that type of mentorship, that type of help, the alignment of values there, as well as the success of all of those contributors and what they've had in areas outside of gaming and what they bring to the table to add unique value to what you guys are accomplishing at Team Liquid?
Yeah. It's interesting. When Victor and I needed to go raise $10 million to pay the LCS franchise fee, we needed to raise money. And I remember having a conversation with Victor, and we kind of said to ourselves, you know what? Let's just not take money from anybody that is using somebody else's money. Kind of simple, okay. But that kind of eliminated a lot of VCs.
So no VCs, no.
Yeah, no VCs and institutional, it kind of just cut out a lot of stuff. And I thought about it, yeah, because they're probably promising things to those other people and then telling us something different, and, I make it simple, but, I think what I'm trying to say is that it was important to find capital from somebody that saw the vision of Team Liquid and was patient with the horizon, that understood that we're not early in this. We're in, what's before it? We're in, just starting, a thought. I think folks don't get that about the esports and gaming industry, because there's just the aging of the population of the world and culture, and the number of people that are coming to PCs. Just a quick aside, when I grew up, I was, I guess, ashamed to be a gamer. I don't know. I definitely wasn't proud to be. I wasn't talking about it at school. I wasn't, I felt like there was a stigma with it. Kids now doing Fortnite dances in the classroom and in the cafeteria, it's just a different vibe, right? And the fact that young kids are probably getting PCs when I was 1 out of 100 that had a PC at home when I was growing up. These things just will change the dynamics associated with the potential of having more esports fans in the future. You can't fast forward that, right? People need to age, and so for me, it was it was just kind of a little bit of that with and then with Ted Leonsis and Peter Guber coming on board and doing the investment. they've been fantastic. I mean, we just built this platform called Liquid Plus, which is pretty amazing. And I remember reaching out to Ted Leonsis and his son, Zach, and we talked about, hey, Ted, you serve on the board of AMX, and Zach, you are very familiar with your fan products that you have for the Wizards and the Capitals. Like, let me download everything about like how this works. And that stuff is vital, I remember Peter was flying to I don't know the basketball terms. Damn it. Whatever the playoffs are in basketball, like the very end.
Yep.
I'm not
conference finals.
Yes. Something where he was about to win the championship or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
The world championship analogy. And so, so he was flying to that. He was in the plane on his jet. And I remember we had a board call, and I was pitching our League of Legends roster and the total cost to get the budget for what we would spend. And he's like, just do whatever you need to win, Steve. just win. And, I think I kind of say that in a joking way, but that mentality from an investor, right? That means a lot, right? Because there's probably other companies that are going into their boardrooms that are like, where's the return? What's the ROI? Like, show me, the money. Peter's like, show me the brand equity. It's like, it's just different.
But is that because, Steve, that your investors are, traditional sports owners, right? Ted Leonsis, traditional sports owner. In their minds, are they banking on the idea that these esports teams like Team Liquid are going to be worth billions the same way, NBA teams or NFL teams or MLB teams all sort of have massively increased in value over the years? Like, are they coming with that mindset?
Absolutely.
And how much of their traditional sports background do you find helpful, but maybe also hurtful, right? Because we've had conversations on the podcast a lot about traditional sports, things that are common in traditional sports, trying to apply them to esports sometimes works, but not always. And I'm curious how much of that influences your decision making, some of their sort of traditional sports background, and what parts of it do you feel are helpful or which ones are hurtful?
Yeah. Victor and I run the company. There's not, management from our greater Team Liquid board into day to day. It's very much a kind of request for assistance or help when needed. So there's not a lot of press down kind of do it this way from those other professional sports team owners. So I think there are aspects of what they do, but I think they also see this as also feeding into the way that they think about running their sports business. So it's almost the inverse.
Interesting.
They may have mastered this ability of selling tickets and monetizing real estate and stadiums and media rights and sponsorships and squeeze the orange on that. But maybe they don't understand the digital space and Discord and Twitch and media rights revenue coming from donations and drops and stickers and emojis instead of ticket sales, and how digital communities come together to celebrate watch parties and communicate with one another. So if anything, I think they're learning more about how to adapt their businesses from having insight into Team Liquid versus us trying to follow a model that has worked for them in professional sports and trying to apply it to esports.
I mean, maybe a follow-up on this is this maybe one of the reasons you guys didn't go into the city-based leagues from Activision-Blizzard? You didn't go into Overwatch, you didn't go into Call of Duty. Was any of that driven by some of the traditional sports influence? Did they have any input on that? Did you guys not feel it was the right sort of move for you? I'm curious that because you're literally in almost every other game. Why not those?
Yeah. for Overwatch in particular, well, I believe that there are a lot of games out there, and then there are a few that are esports. And the definition for me for esports means that you enjoy watching a game as much as you do playing it, or probably could. And that spectator aspect of a game is quite rare. And so there's a lot of games that don't apply to that. And I think Overwatch may have been one of them. And I know that they did a lot to customize the game and make it more attractive for viewers. And then you kind of double that with this fact that all games are on a product life cycle. Going back to economics, you have a introduction, a growth, a maturity, a decline that will happen, just like it happens with baseball, right? By sport, by game. And most games, they go up and they go down. And that's it. That's their life. I think being gamers and having a sense of Overwatch and playing a lot of it, you kind of think to yourself, is this a league that is going to be like League of Legends? It's going to be around for a decade, that is going to continue to grow in viewership. So we have to ask ourselves these questions when we're thinking about paying, what was it, to like $20 million to own a spot in something that is built to have long-term success. It's very different than, League of Legends, which the world's viewership for League of Legends has increased every year after year for 10 years. That is a sport. I don't know this, but my guess is their DAUs are down, which means that less people are playing the game. So what does that mean? That means you have a sport. That means people are watching your game and enjoying that as much as playing it. Now that is magical. Now, not every game can get there. And so for us to, invest a significant amount of capital into something that may not have that type of product lifecycle associated with it, there's some trepidation to it. Now, on the Call of Duty side, that kind of idea of home and away and having recurring games, I think was a textbook thing from professional sports. And I guess I just don't believe in that model. I think gamers like online, and I like hanging out with my friends on Discord. I just do. I think a lot of people are like me. And so
the numbers seem to bear that out. So.
Yeah. And so, now I kind of like their idea of making them more entertainment events and not really there to watch the COD games, but to hang out and celebrate, IP and hang out with friends and stuff like that. That could be successful maybe. But that's an events business. That's an events business using IP. A little different than kind of an esports league thing. So those are at least part of the rationale for us, without getting into a bunch of other specifics around it.
The other example I wanted to ask about, and this because I was watching this recently, was the WoW Race to World First, where you guys had arguably, I mean, not even arguably, clearly by far the best setup of any team, right? I feel like there was more chatter online about, I think it was the team chef or someone, and the catered meals that they were getting 3 times a day while they were raiding. I don't know if you can talk to that, Steve, a little bit. WoW, you wouldn't think of as a traditional esports, but traditional esport, but where you guys have applied, I feel like the same Team Liquid kind of ethos. I don't know if you have any feelings on that specifically.
Yeah, I mean, Race to World was such a fun event, and it's also a big undertaking, right? You have this patch that drops and everybody's racing to, basically beat the patch. And I think for us, having, I think it was 45 or 50 people, to all go to one location and do the broadcast and do the race. It was just it was quite the undertaking. But our events group and our production group and our partners all just kind of rallied, and we made it happen. And but I do remember, like, I think it was on day like 12 or 13, and this is after most Race to Worlds finish in 7 to 8 days. I was like, okay, we're spending like $35,000 a day. Someone fucking beat the jailer already.
Figure it out, guys.
Yeah, figure it out. It started to get a little expensive, and but luckily the viewership was fantastic, so it helped offset some of the costs and stuff. But yeah, the team was great. I can't wait for the next one, because we were supposed to have it at the Alienware training facility here in Santa Monica, but we actually took over the entire space next door, which is an additional 10,000 square feet, and we completely gutted and we're renovating it. So it just wasn't done in time. But the next one will be, and then that way we'll be able to do the race from the training facility, which will save a considerable amount on cost.
So as we're talking about, audiences, entertainment, community-driven events, I just wanted to shed light and kind of get your thoughts and have you share a little bit more about your Ascension charity tournament for Valorant that you did with the Boys and Girls Club. What more can we expect out of Team Liquid with regard to charity-driven events, community-driven events, entertainment-based events, live, online, or otherwise, that are just unique opportunities for you guys to give back, but also to relate to the voice of your audience and the voice, I think, of the gaming community and society at large.
Yeah, totally. I mean, even back in the Curse days and early Team Liquid days, I think giving back and participating in our communities that support our teams and players is a responsibility. And I think we've done a fantastic job of that over the years. We worked very closely with the Seattle Children's Hospital. We did some work with the Boys and Girls Club. We have done a good amount of work for City Year of LA consistently. And I think over time, we've raised hundreds of thousands of dollars for these respective groups. But one thing that kind of stood out is that they were a bit disparate. There was a lot of different nonprofits and groups that we were working with, and we decided, we gotta focus in to make a greater impact. And so the Boys and Girls Club of LA was one that stood out to us, because what we realized is that within these communities, most of the kids that go to the Boys and Girls Club at home don't have access to a computer or good enough or reliable enough internet. And not having that access is almost like a starting point of not having access to opportunity. And so one of the good ways to partner with the Boys and Girls Club is to basically build gaming labs within each Boys and Girls Club around the country. And so we figured, let's prove out a case model, and let's go to the Boys and Girls Club of Metro LA, which is one of the largest in the entire country. And let's build a lab and figure all this out. And let's bring in like the executives from the Boys and Girls Club to come and see what we've done here, so that we can hopefully convince them to model this out and for us to do this for tens of thousands of locations and provide access to underprivileged communities that don't have access. And so it's been fantastic and really rewarding. And just to see the kids' smiles and, them playing with their, these high-powered Alienware laptops, it's just super cool. And of course, they're going to be doing schoolwork and stuff on there too, not just gaming, but it's
schoolwork.
Yeah, it's schoolwork. Yeah, alt tab back to the game. So yeah, I think like I said, I think it's a responsibility.
It's such a cool initiative, and I hope that gets rolled out to every Boys and Girls Club everywhere, because that's the promise of gaming, right? It's the mass accessibility, if you can get them the equipment, right? And so I think that's such a great initiative. Can we switch gears, Steve, and talk a little bit about the challenges of running and building an esports org? And I think on this podcast, we've talked about a few things. We've talked about player salaries, overtime increasing. We've talked about a little bit of the education gap with sponsors, where maybe when you walk into a brand or a sponsor day one, they don't really know what esports is, or whatever the case may be. We've talked about just in general the difficulties of growing a brand globally, right? Like you have to reach people everywhere who follow different teams and different games, and that requires that's a challenge in and of itself. I'm curious, when you look at your own business, what do you see as the greatest challenge for Team Liquid from a growth standpoint?
Yeah. On a few of those topics that you just mentioned, like sponsorships, I think we're probably best in class in the world. In terms of content, I think we're going to get really good at it. We just actually hired Josie, who used to work at Hulu and has just an impeccable background in brand marketing and content, and she's coming in to lead a lot of that, and feel pretty good about that. I would, in player salaries, we've been fortunate enough where we have great sponsorship revenue, and we're probably creating the problems with player salaries, honestly.
It's honest. I like it.
Yeah.
So the other guys who are coming on and complaining, I'll direct them to Steve.
But I do think, for us, one of the things that I personally found challenging, I'll say, is just a growing company. Going back, it's probably been like 3 years ago, we maybe had 35, 40 people. We just our last employee mark, I think, was 350. It's like, wow. It's like, oh my gosh, there's a completely different skill set in maintaining a culture and the TL way, and having people hired at Team Liquid that aren't interviewed by the executive team. It puts a responsibility on onboarding and training and cultural norms, and it is a challenge to get from that small size company to a proper mid-size company, and maintain the culture and keep trust within the organization. I think we've done an incredible job at it, but it has not been easy. It's not just something that just happens. You have to focus on it. You have to talk to your employees. You have to listen to them. You have to, provide the right kind of things. You need to be very clear about your North Star and your direction and your mission, vision, and values. You lose sight of that, and I think folks forget why they're doing stuff, or they become confused. You need very precise roles and responsibilities. You can't have overlap and competition within your own company. I mean, these are just kind of growing pains of the business. So I think that's been probably the most challenging of late, and likely will continue, going into this next phase of growth as we, continue to do more and grow revenue and impact more people. And for example, we're building a facility in Brazil, in Sao Paulo, another 15,000 square feet, probably another 65 staff. Things are moving, and and I thank God we've been able to identify great leaders and bring in new people. Just been able to really rely on them to help.
It's such an interesting answer, Stephen, and a great segue into sort of my last question here before we get to everyone's favorite new segment. That is, what does the future look like for Team Liquid, right? What are the things that you're most excited about? What are, paint me the picture 5 years from now. How big is this? What should we all be excited about to see in the next 5 years?
Yeah. I'd say one of the things that I find most exciting is, I think a lot of esports businesses like us are reliant on revenues from the leagues that we participate in, the developers for the games that we play, the sponsors and partners that work with us, the websites and the ad revenue that we get. And a lot of this is great. It's good. But really provides exponential growth and effect to gamers around the world is the ability to provide a direct consumer experience play. Something where Team Liquid is the host of a watch party or a community event digitally and probably IRL to some degree. And what's happening with blockchain technology, even digital goods. Now you can decide not to mint them and make them NFTs, but just digital goods in general, being able to we talked a little bit about that, like badge that you get from packs that, might save in your closet. Like, what's the analogous digital good when I watch the World Championship, right? What do I walk away with that I'm proud of and that like memorializes that moment of my attendance and participation in something that I care about? I think over the next probably 5 to 10 years, you'll probably see these teams that have amassed a significant fan base and following and brand equity being able to customize what they offer directly to their fans and become bigger businesses because of it. And I think where we're thinking about that and what we've done with Liquid Plus is basically setting us up for that.
It's a cool future. I'm excited to see it. That brings us, guys, everyone's favorite new segment, Judge Jimmy's cross-examination. Steve, Jimmy's going to give you 5 or 6 rapid fire questions here. Get to know you a little bit better as a person, as a gamer. So Judge Jimmy, take it away.
Try and keep these short and painless. First question, Steve, what is your go-to gamer snack or drink? What do you eat or drink while playing?
Yeah, what I drink is Monster and sparkling water, which I have them on my desk. And then in terms of snacks, I do a lot of Postmates, and it's either Jersey Mike's or Chipotle constantly.
Shameless plug on Jersey Mike's there. Let's follow
up. It is also
up.
true, though.
Let's follow up. And I don't want to get you in hot water, so you don't have to name names, but I'll ask, who is your favorite streamer to watch? Or if you want to keep it more broad, what's your favorite game right now to watch on Twitch?
Yeah, my favorite game at the moment is actually AoE, AoE 4. It's funny. I don't know if you look at my Twitter, I posted a picture of like my most played games on Steam by play hours, which I didn't even know was a thing until my friend was like, yeah, you could look it up and see like what your most played games are and how much time you've invested in each of these games. It's like, oh my God. And so quickly climbing the ranks is AoE 4 just because I played a ton of StarCraft, and it's an RTS, and I love it. I think it's balanced and it's a lot of fun in the games. There is just not another game where my heart is racing and I'm intently focused on the game, perspiring. And if I just lose focus for a second, I'm going to lose the game. It is just so intense, and I love that.
It's just a genre that's not in vogue anymore, though, right? That's the sad part.
It's really fallen off. There hasn't been a great RTS that's like broken through on the esports side like StarCraft did, but I love AoE. Yeah, it's a great game.
So let's broaden that for the next question. Favorite game of all time?
Oh, it has to be League of Legends. I mean, without a doubt. League of Legends was the start of all of this for me personally, and I've come to love Riot Games. I have come to love League of Legends as a game. I am infatuated with League of Legends community, and I still to this day get excited and nervous, and I have anxiety just being around events and people and casters and fans, and I still get butterflies. It's been the centerpiece for me personally within the gaming space.
Last question here, and I think I know the answer. What is your favorite show or movie adapted from a video game IP?
Arcane was pretty good. Arcane was pretty good.
I sort of expected that one.
Yeah. I mean, I think we were all shocked on how damn good it was, right? I mean, Riot was kind of like this sleeping giant that was Riot Game instead of Riot Games for like 10 years. And then all of a sudden they just made it rain and then like dropped all this stuff and then also IP. So yeah, it's great.
Solid, Steve. Thank you for that. I'll give it back to you, Paul.
Steve, for people who want to follow you, find out more about Team Liquid, where do you want to be followed or found?
Yeah, so you can follow Team Liquid on Twitter at /Team Liquid. We also have different handles for every different game genre and stuff. So, if you like Valorant, it's Liquid Valorant and so on. I'm not going to list all 19.
Or maybe you directly.
Oh, me too. Yeah, you could follow me on Twitter at Liquid112.
Liquid112. Very cool. Steve, thank you so much for being on the show. Jimmy, thank you as always. Just a couple of reminder, guys, make sure follow Business of Esports everywhere at Biz Esports or Business of Esports on every platform, on Instagram, on TikTok, on Twitter, on YouTube, on LinkedIn, literally anywhere you get our Business of Esports content. Make sure you hit that follow button. Also, don't forget every Wednesday evening, 8:30 p.m. Eastern time, we do a live stream. It's all the news we cover with a bigger cast. And best of all, we get to do it live with you guys. So you get to ask questions, get in our faces, challenge us. It's a lot of fun. 8:30 p.m. Eastern time every Wednesday evening. As always, guys, don't forget the future is fun. We'll see you next week.